Hello, our lovely Girl Awakening listeners. Welcome to 2023. I'm Jo Hendy from the Sacred Sister Project.
I'm Amanda Parker of Mayala Organics.
Come with us as we journey into this week's Awakening episode.
I talk to a spirit. She comes in my dreams.
Good morning, Jo.
I love how you do that. I love how you take your power.
Smooth.
Yes, very smooth. We're back here again.
Oh, it's just a most amazing moment in time to be here right now. And
Isn't
just
it? How lucky are we? Like how the word blessed, but how blessed are we?
It's so funny. It almost makes you emotional.
Yep. I can feel that. I can feel that coming. Yeah.
Just breathe into that and feel. And the word lucky has been coming up for me a lot again. I used to use it a lot.
Yeah.
And I think it might have been Rasa, Pure Rasa.
Oh, yeah.
Did a little post about it the other day, and I just went, yeah, I goddamn love that word.
Yeah.
And it's so nice to own being lucky.
Yeah. And the other thing that I'm loving is that we get an opportunity each week to come in and almost like have a healing session every Wednesday. We don't.
Thank you,
we just, the universe is just providing these incredible women that are healers in their own right, that are sitting in our space and expanding us while they're just talking. It's so beautiful.
And it's like they're donating themselves,
their space
to the community,
their
to the collective.
Yeah.
So
we have another really, really, really amazing guest today. And now this lady has been mentioned a few times in other podcasts with other guests that we've had on, and so we just thought it was about time that we actually hunted her down.
in the best of ways.
In the best of ways. So today we have Kendall Williams. She is a highly tuned empath to each soul's unique vibration. Her training has spanned over the past 15 years with many acclaimed teachers. After many years in her successful private practice, formerly Rainbow Lantern in Sydney, she's currently here on the Gold Coast with Heart Hive. She has evolved her passion to teach and expand, now focusing her teachers in shamanic training, empowerment, meditation to light the world. Kendall is an accredited crystal healer and teacher, a Reiki master, shamanic healer, and meditation teacher. She is an advocate for donating holistic practices to those in need and assisted in charity events, volunteering Reiki and spiritual work, and also the Helpwell Hospice,
which is
a
the most compassionate,
generous
Reiki
person,
can do.
in itself. Welcome,
Hello.
Kendall. Yay!
It's a bit overwhelming hearing all that about yourself, isn't it?
Yeah, it is when you. We've heard that many times too, because you don't very often sit back and read your own bio over and over. Yeah,
it's probably one thing most healers avoid reading.
Yes. Well, it seems so
too much pressure.
Yeah, but it also seems so insignificant to really what you're about.
Yeah, and I suppose you're so focused on growing all the time, and that next step of expansion, and you don't really. I don't think often we reflect back on what we've done. Yeah. So when someone says it in a kind of a spiel, you kind of go, oh.
Yes.
Yeah,
how beautiful.
Yeah.
And I think from reading your bio out loud to introduce you, you get a definite sense that you're in amongst the thick of it. You're not actually being introduced many times, I would say. I mean, and here is Kendall. Like, Kendall is there in the middle of
doing it all.
The action amongst the troops
behind the scenes,
creating.
That's true. A lot of people actually say to me, it is so beautiful when you rang me and said, oh, there's so many people that have mentioned you, and I'm like, oh, really? I always explain to my clients as well and my students that I kind of stay in my little hut and I just do what I need to do, and people that need me or find me will find me, because people often ask me in the spiritual community, do you know this person, do you know that person? And I'm a bit of a very extrovert when I'm teaching and when I'm in practice, but I'm a real introvert on that other side. So I tend to find that we have a bit of a saying in our place at work, and that's like, stay in your own lane. Because we get the most done when we do, the less amount of fracture. So yeah.
And do you think that's a part of like being an empath as well, that it's almost a little bit of self-preservation?
100%. 100%. And I think the more for me, the whole journey and being a practitioner has been over sort of 17 years in total probably now, and the more that you deepen and the more that you keep practicing your craft, and it is a craft. I don't think we're always understood that way. The harder your clients become, the more complicated, the more complex, the more opportunities come for you on a scale of this someone we don't know who else to call, sort of thing. So when
we've
you
tried
say,
everything. Now we need you. Someone suggested you.
and so you sort of go through, that mode of things. So it is like that. You're in the thick of it, and you don't have time to chase the other things. So it's just kind of like, out of the way and let me do my thing.
Yes.
A lot of inner dialogue, I think, as well. Going on. So I think we should just dive straight in and ask you, Kendall.
I can't wait.
Yeah.
That's so beautiful. Thank you.
We have been waiting now. It's here. It's real. What was your life like before your awakening?
Oh, so different. Different and similar, I suppose. I grew up in a fairly affluent family, and I didn't have what I would have been perceived the trauma that a lot of other people I met on my spiritual journey. But for me, I was brought up with a certain, not to blame, I don't think any of my work is about blaming anyone. It's just about understanding your sensitivity and who you are. So I wasn't brought up with an openness to spiritual work. I didn't, I meet a lot of people that have that beautiful free range hippie sort of lifestyle and that was never on the cards for me. I was pretty much brought up as a 50s housewife.
Yep.
And with pretty much the concept of, not that my mum wasn't into women's empowerment, she was in her way, but it was also that there was expectations, and that was, there's nothing wrong going out and getting a job and chasing your dreams, but then you got married and your husband looked after you and you have kids and you stay home, and my mum was a full-time mum, and there's just all those expectations. And being a good girl, you sent to private schools, you do the right thing, definitely wasn't a rebel. So being a sensitive kid in a very boisterous household too is sometimes the one that you become the peacemaker for everyone, or the one that doesn't want to upset the apple cart, even though I can be very loud like the rest of my family. So for me it was just this challenge of getting to in my 30s, so the beginning of my 30s, and there was kind of some crisis points that happened, but I started to feel really lost inside. I felt like I had this beautiful husband and I had 2 little children, and life looked really good on the outside, but I felt something was missing, and I felt really this sense of the only way I could honestly describe it was this loneliness, and so I started to question things a little bit, and those little questions were still not what got me onto the journey, but they were more of an acknowledgement that maybe maybe something's not. I'm missing. Maybe I'm something not right with me.
Isn't that a little program in itself?
Oh, totally.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking, listening to the way that you've been brought up and grown up, that's a quite intense program too. Just even growing up in a normal household or an above average household. Did you go to a girls' school? And
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So there's a lot of programs in there to then be able, eventually be able to go, something doesn't feel right here.
Yeah, and it's just like, it's only when you realise, I think most of us as females start to feel like at some point, maybe I'm not okay. Yeah. And then the road to find, am I okay, is it's not present for women.
It usually starts with doctors or things like that, or
and that sort of thing. But I can remember asking my mum, like, so I had, I'm a fierce mother. I love my kids. Yeah. But being a really sensitive person is hard. Yeah. So I think me parenting is quite. I love my kids and do anything for them, but I find being a mum the hardest job on the planet. Yeah. because I worry so much all
Yeah.
the time
Yeah.
because I feel them and I feel the world and I feel freaking everyone.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's just hard. But I can remember saying to my mum when my son was about, he would have been about 5 and my daughter was like, 1 maybe, saying to her, I just felt like, okay, I'm on fucking top of everything,
Yeah.
right? I've got the house clean. My sister used to ring me and say, "You baking muffins again?" Like literally, that was my world.
Yeah.
Do all the jobs on the female side of life.
Yeah.
And I
hearing
remember
you.
saying to I remember saying to my mum, "Did you ever feel like it wasn't enough?" And it took me a lot of guts to ask her that question. Yeah, because my
Yes.
mum's a really, she's a wonderful mum, and her, we've all got life purpose, and I think my mum's life purpose was to be a mum, and she's awesome at it.
Yeah.
But I said to her, like, I feel like something's not right. Like, you know what I mean? And different generations.
Yeah.
My mum said, "Don't be ridiculous, Kendall."
Yes.
I think I've heard that line a lot in my life.
Yeah.
Don't be ridiculous. Of course, your children are your everything. And I thought, I know they're my everything, but I feel alone. I feel bored. I feel like
There's something missing.
Yeah, but because of that statement, I got back in my box.
Yeah. Wow.
Because you think, well, there's obviously something wrong with me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because no one else talks. The women around me, because you're in similar groups.
Yes.
And growing up in Sydney works in this machine that you stay in a particular society culture, and each little pod, they're your friends, they're your family, they're your expectations.
It's your box.
It's
you
your
stay in
box.
your box.
Behave yourself.
Yes, exactly.
Behave yourself. Yeah. So that for me, I think, was the beginning of like realizing I had, and then you feel so much guilt, don't you? So much guilt because like you should be grateful.
Yes.
And that's one thing about Western culture that I fight quite often with, what I've learned over the years is stop shoving gratitude down me and telling me, like, I'm naturally heartfelt grateful is different from feeling like I should be grateful.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a big
Absolutely.
line there.
Yeah.
So, I've got a house, I've got a husband, I've got 2 nice kids. What would you complain?
Why would you want more?
Why
do you want anything
Yeah.
else?
Yeah.
What else do you want? You've got enough.
That's it. And then you think to yourself, if that's everything, I'm like something must be wrong with my wiring.
That's a big one. That's a really beautiful share, I think, for our listeners, because I'm sure there's, I just listening to you now, I go, I'm the one that gets all the jobs done, ticks all the boxes, and but I still feel a little bit empty. Why do I still feel a little bit empty? And I've learned over the last 10 years that, that's only a tiny part of it.
Yep.
And even then I don't have to tick all those boxes. It's okay not to tick those boxes.
Yeah.
Sometimes you've got to put those things down and go for a walk, or put your feet in the sand, or
Just choose yourself.
Choose yourself.
Choose yourself for a moment, because
Yeah.
it's okay not to like everything all the friggin' time.
Absolutely.
It's exhausting.
Well, that's all part of the looking perfect too, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you remember that old show that used to be on TV? Well, again, we're showing our age again. But I think it was called Desperate Housewives.
Yeah.
And everybody loved it. It was one of those cult sort of shows at the time. Well, there was Brie Vanderkamp, the redheaded one, who used to bake the muffins. And when my sister used to call me and she'd say, because she wasn't married, and it was just be her joke of, prodding me. And she'd say, "What's up, Brie? Have you got muffins in the oven?" And I'd be literally taking the muffins out of there.
Maybe.
And I don't mind.
No,
I
I'm
don't
not.
mind doing those things.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I love those elements in my life to a point.
Yeah.
But I feel like the more you ignore that, whatever that is that's sitting there, that little bit of emptiness or loneliness was the way that I mainly describe it. It gets louder.
Yeah.
Starts to eat you up a little bit.
It just gets louder because you're not addressing it. You know?
And it's a crazy thing that we question that loneliness or put it in a form where we feel guilty or isolated, because if and not just that, if you put it in a different context, we say it was a man feeling that way, it'd be like, get out there, son, and go find something,
Yeah.
you know.
Or always shush, wear it more shh.
Yeah.
And just that thing around, instead of being able to go, okay, well, I need to find something that's in my creativity, or, you know, like, what else is there for me here? I can still do all this. But there's obviously something else I'm looking to do too. Like, that's not I think, like we've alluded to, and we'll talk more about, is like the generational aspects.
Yeah.
But involved in that, but also in our roles, how our roles can be, you know, quite like the constructs, constrictive. You know, this is where you sit. This is where you should be happy. This is where you should be content. And the stuff that you know, our hearts are so capable of so much expanse.
Oh yes,
you know.
and learning,
Yeah.
discovery.
So what did you do with that niggling?
Yeah.
Well, I kind of ignored it, like
Yeah.
you do, and just got on with the job of doing whatever and feeling grateful, of course.
Started a muffin company.
Yeah, started a muffin. I probably freaking could, you know.
Yeah.
But basically, what was a turning point for me was when I had my son. Obviously, he was 4 when my daughter was born, but I had another thing of that disconnection in my life. I think I did all the right things. I've always done all the right things, right? So, you know, I obviously was having my son, and I went and did all the, you know, you do the classes and go to the hospital, but I had a really traumatic birth with him, and it didn't go according to plan.
Yeah.
But to be quite honest, I was also shushed a lot after that when I wasn't okay.
Yeah.
And it was like, you know, don't be ridiculous again, Kendall. Stop talking about it. It's and, you know, this sort of, because I lived in that sort of environment and era at the time. And so a year after I had Maxie, I realised, not only later, not going through it, that I definitely had postnatal depression.
Yeah.
But to me, it was just me going into, you know, my description would be me going into a darker place.
Yeah.
But I thought I had such a connection with my son, and I was a great mum, doing all the right things, but I felt really lonely and really isolated and really not myself, not my happy self.
Yeah.
And even when I asked, you know, another family member, I said, why didn't you notice? Why didn't anyone, you know? And they said, oh, well, weren't really comfortable with you because you weren't yourself. Because I'm normally the happy one, and I'm normally...
They didn't know what to do with the other one.
Scared them
Everyone
that you
just
weren't
ignored
yourself.
me.
Yeah.
I think, and I don't think they consciously meant to.
Yeah.
It was just...
They didn't know how to.
And I didn't know... didn't know how to ask for... I didn't know how to use my voice.
Yeah.
I didn't know how to ask for help. I certainly, having a baby, didn't have a clue. You know, and then people, you know, my mum's generation of women, as beautiful as they were, they'd be like, listen, lovey, don't keep saying negative things. You'll scare other women.
Pick yourself up, love.
Yes. You'll be right.
Yes. Wipe yourself off.
Yeah, so I had this 4-year gap between my kids because I literally didn't want to have another baby because I was so scared.
Terrified, yeah.
I was terrified, not just of having the baby, but from... I didn't want to lose myself again. It took me 4 years to feel myself, like what I thought was myself at the time. So when I had my daughter, then I literally thought, well, this is be fine because, you know, I've got a lot more support around me now, and it's all fine. And, you know, I've been through this and I've been through that. So the week that I had my daughter, my parents were, and I was still in hospital, and had a great birth with her, all of that, like worked on a lot of sort of stuff.
Beautiful.
But my mum and dad were in a major car accident.
Oh, God.
And luckily they were okay.
Yeah.
But my mum had severe bruising from the airbag all down her chest.
Yeah.
And then a couple of weeks after the car accident, and I was just sort of bringing baby home, so it was just drama. What is it with bloody drama?
Yeah,
just
yeah.
when you think you're on top of things.
Yeah.
And they had, mum kept saying, oh, the bruisings, you know, blah, blah, blah. So she had a scan just to check everything was fine, and they found she had breast cancer.
Oh, wow.
geez.
So I thought I'd be okay because I would have, you had all this
Help.
support and help
Yeah.
around me, and my, you know, my mum was living closer by and all of that stuff. But it was just an absolute you know, when you come to the crossroads of a crisis point in your life, and you step up and you do what you need to do. So my dad didn't cope with my mum having cancer, and I had to get my mum through chemo and be her person while I had a brand new baby and a 4-year-old. And then my husband decided to leave who he was working for and go out and start his own business. And so it was like everything imploded in that time. Yeah. And I got through all of that. But then the year of that, when that ended, I got chronic fatigue, and I was sick, and I couldn't be me anymore. And then that meant something has to change.
Yeah. Oh, this is so beautiful. You know? We just talked about this.
It's
the breaking point, isn't it? The breakthrough point. Yeah.
100%. And basically, in all these little weird things that Spirit's always like in your ear, and you maybe just don't know it yet, you know. And the lady I'd go to, which is so bizarre, to the hairdressers, she wasn't a hairdresser, but she was a medium.
Yeah, God bless hairdressers.
Yes. Right? And
then until they find out that they're a medium.
There's something else.
But she had a hairdresser working for her, but she had this thing, and then she used to have it was just, when I think back, it was kind of like, you know, Spirit just putting these little pods in my spots to find.
Beautiful.
And so her mum had been going through cancer as well. So when I would come to get my hair done, we'd talk about it, and I felt like that was really, you know, good.
Like therapy almost.
Yeah, it was really beautiful. You know, hairdressers therapy
place.
Yes. But what was interesting is when I started to get really unwell from all the stress from the year of trying to keep everyone afloat and deal with that peacemaking, and you know, everyone was acting out, and it was just took a massive toll. I went to the doctors, because that's what you do, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And, so I went to the doctors, and I sat with the doctors, and I explained to them, and I remember crying because I think I was just so exhausted and so overwhelmed. And I explained my story, and how, like, you know, I'd get up at 11 o'clock at night to drive to the hospital because my mum would call me to drive her because she's got a temperature, and you know, like, it was just nuts.
With the newborn, all of it. Yeah, wow, that's insane. Insanity,
you
basically.
Just would not have ever switched off, would you?
No. And so, so it was sort of quite funny how it all worked out.
You got to have a sense of humour.
Yes, exactly.
Not at the time necessarily, but
look, I'm grateful that that's something I am grateful for. I'm grateful that everything had to come to a stop at some point. But I think one thing that very much stuck with me was when I went into the doctors feeling very vulnerable and very unwell, and so I had all my blood tests done, and many women will say these things when they don't feel themselves. They get their blood tests done, and then you have to go back, and you get back there, and they say everything's fine.
Oh yeah,
you're fine.
Yeah,
there's nothing here to say
we
that
can't measure anything.
No. And then he said to me, I remember still feeling upset, and I must have had something leak out of my eyes again. And he said to me, do you find you're crying a lot? And I said, well, I'm so tired, I'm so exhausted, and I'm so like, overwhelmed. Like, please, somebody give me a hand. And you've got no answers for me. And he said, well, I think it might be a good idea to go on antidepressant.
I was going to say, was it Valium or antidepressants?
And it wasn't even just go and maybe you should talk to someone, or none of that. Was just like, I think we should put you on antidepressants. And only because, thank you, Jesus, that I am so sensitive to medication, and I have a lot of allergies with medication. So it's a no for me.
Universe.
It's a no for me.
Your soul says no.
Yeah. And so I said thank you, and he said, if you change your mind, come back and we'll write you a script. And like, I was like, oh. And then my lady from the hairdresser said to me, I know a beautiful holistic counsellor, and she's been helping me while I'm going through my mum's stuff as well. So I'll give you a number and you should go.
Oh wow.
So that's what I was going to do.
It's like a beautiful intervention.
But that was the scariest thing of my life.
Yeah.
Because if I told anyone in my family I was going to see a counsellor, that would have been the equivalent of saying you're going to do voodoo.
Yeah.
Because they don't talk about their emotions.
Yeah.
So
you're weak. You should be able to handle it yourself.
I remember driving to that appointment and thinking, like, I just thought, I don't even know if I can get there.
Yeah, right.
Because, like, what am I going to say?
Yeah.
And what if anyone finds out?
Yeah.
Like, you know.
You've been a bad girl.
Yeah.
But it was the best thing I ever did.
Yeah.
Did you walk out a different person?
I
Or did it take
actually
a bit?
thought I'd have nothing to say. And I got in there and just totally lost myself in. But she was also a kinesiologist and a yoga teacher as well.
Unreal.
So when she did kinesiology on me, I was like,
Muscle testing,
what
You don't really have to answer too much, do you?
yeah, because obviously it switched on something for me too, because I was like, what are you doing to my brain? Like, and she was like, what do you mean? And I'm like, she goes, can you feel that? I'm like, oh my God, I felt like you plugged me into a radio station. So after that, that helped me. She was pivotal in the sense that she said one statement to me that stuck with me for life. Yeah. And she said, probably get emotional thinking about it. She said, Kendall, take the cape off.
Oh.
And I was like, and now I know, like, I really, really know what that means.
That's so beautiful.
But at the time, I wasn't sure what she was talking about.
How powerful for her to even say that.
I know.
To stand in that and say that to you.
So she saw you,
That's so beautiful.
And having someone emotionally connected who, she was a mum of 4 boys.
Wow.
Like,
So you resonated straight away.
She's not trying to, she's relating.
Yes.
And I don't think I had people relating to me in most of my life, so it was very confusing.
Yeah.
Wow, take the cape off.
Yeah.
That is so powerful.
I just think, we're just, saying this a bit lately, but I think just sit with that for a minute, because having someone relate to you emotionally,
it cracks things open.
Yeah.
And then you start to understand why you felt lonely.
Yeah. Because up until then, you think you're, you can't win. You think you're a nutbag if you feel like what everyone tells you should be feeling. But then if you go see someone when that's not accepted in your, or talked about in your community, then you feel a bit like a nutbag then too, don't you?
And the other thing I was thinking of too is that she would have held a space for you to be able to feel something.
100%.
Yeah.
And we often feel guilty when we lose the plot as soon as we, But like I always say to my clients, like, this is what, if I don't make you cry, we're not doing a good job in here. You've got to let it out.
Feel it.
Because we don't let things out.
No. Well, when you were saying about when you went to see the doctor and he asked if you were crying a lot, it's almost like it's like a failing.
Yes.
The way they ask. And you probably were crying on your own. You probably weren't crying.
Do you know what if I had...
And anyone therefore you're giving you a hug.
If I'd asked that man to do what I did over that year, he'd be crying.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, just even on the exhaustion level, it's like, why did I felt very like alone in that moment too, because I'm like, I just told you what I'd been through. Why, like, if someone had told me what they'd been through, I would have gone, bloody hell, you need to cry.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
How can we get you some support?
Yeah.
No, I mean, the world is changing, but when we, we're fast forwarding back to 17 years ago.
Yeah.
Which isn't that long, but it is a huge,
for how fast everything's moving.
Absolutely.
It is.
I mean, we didn't talk about mental health then.
No, not the way we do now.
Not now, yeah.
But it's, like, God, that's a whole other path.
Yeah.
We could go down. We don't go there. Let's stick with your awakening.
Yeah.
So
you were basically in your early 30s.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the crack opens
up, yeah.
So she, the one thing the other wonderful thing, my counsellor said to me was, she said, okay, so it was good just to release everything I felt bad about feeling.
Yeah.
Because I felt, I probably felt angry about some of those situations I'd been dealing with and that. So just to let it out with knowing I wasn't going to hurt anyone.
Yeah.
Because I was so worried about hurting anyone.
Yeah.
But she also said to me, what do you do for you? I was like, what? Who? Is there someone else in the room? Are you speaking to me? And she said, I want you to, you're so wired up. And as empaths, when we don't have solitude or we don't have our own track, we often just overload on so many other people's energies. We're natural shapeshifters. We change everything depending on who we're with, the tone of our voice, the way we use gestures, we meet your vibration and, every single time. So when you grow up in a household that's quite full on, what you do is you don't know who you are anymore. Yeah. And I think a lot of empaths will tell you that. So she said to me, I want you to go out for a walk, even just getting out of the house each day without one of the kids, and even just when your hubby comes home or whatever. But I couldn't do that. Yeah. And I realised that So I went back, I said to her, I want to, but I just find too many other things to do for everybody else.
Yeah.
And that's habitual, isn't it?
Yeah.
So she said, well, I'm the sort of person, I'll show up. I'll always show up for someone. So she said, what about doing a short course? Because then you're good with rules and commitment.
Yeah.
So if you do a short course, you have to show up, and you have to do it for, even if it's 6 weeks or 8 weeks or 3 months or whatever else.
That's wise.
And if you feel obligated to someone, Kendall, you'll always get there.
Yeah.
So it's that accountability.
Yeah.
So I kid you not, the next day I went to the letterbox and there was this big booklet thing on TAFE short courses in my letterbox. Thank you, Spirit.
Yes, exactly.
And I flicked through it and I was like, okay, well, that's a sign, obviously. And you wouldn't believe it. There was like computer courses and all these things, and floristry was one of the only things probably in alignment to my life at that time. And I was like, I can write invitations and do flowers. I was trained into that. And I thought I don't want to do any of that. Yeah, and right at the back of the book there was a tarot course.
Oh.
And I have said to every single person I've ever asked me my story, I've said to, have you ever heard of TAFE having a tarot course?
Yeah, no.
None of us ever have again.
No.
So I think it was something that was cooked up
Yes,
for me.
yes.
I think so.
And I thought, I'd love to do that, because as a kid, we had only one shop in our local area. I grew up on the northern beaches in Sydney that had crystals and cards and things, and I was always wanted to spend longer in there, just to annoy everyone.
Yeah. You were drawn to it.
I was drawn to
Yeah.
it. So I thought, I'll go do this tarot, I'll enroll, and I did.
Unreal.
And that gave me a 2-hour class once a week that I had to get to.
Yeah.
So I had to literally hand the kids over and hand the responsibilities over and all of that stuff, which was really hard to
Big
do.
on every level.
Yeah, really guilt-orientated issues there. And I was so afraid of going.
Did you say it was a tarot class to other people, or did you call it something else?
No, actually, it was weird. Quite honestly, always been a bit different. So, like, I always say the wrong thing. I've got that natural nature. If anyone's going to put their foot in it, it's me.
Yeah.
So I did tell everyone I was doing a tarot course.
Wonderful.
And my friends learnt from then onwards that I was the one that, if we sat, when we did Mother's Coffee, it would be like, what are you doing now? Because I was always doing something odd.
Yeah.
But I was scared to go because I kept hearing my mum's voice in my head, there's all those strange people there, Kendall.
Oh,
You know, like that conditioning.
Yeah.
I remember being like, I don't know if I can what if I go in there and what if they're all those weird people?
Wow.
And they were those weird people.
Yes.
I
I
loved
was
it.
going to say, you walked in there and you didn't walk out the same again.
No. And I kept, our teacher went on. What I discovered is, one, places that I was scared of going, I didn't need to be scared of going.
Mm-hmm.
But two, I realised that I was absolutely fascinated with it, and I was bloody good at something that I didn't know I was good at.
Yeah.
So it just came naturally for me.
I was going to say, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's that thing where, feel the fear and do it anyway. It's like sometimes there's a lot of bliss and a lot of gold in those moments.
And it was the only place I wasn't anybody.
Yeah.
Like, I wasn't the person that, you sort of have, friends from school and different societies you hang out to and different expectations. And then you have these roles of like mum and wife, and no one knew who I was, or there's something really cool about that. When you get to be, and I love going to things where I don't tell anyone what I do for a living now.
Yeah.
I'm just Kendall.
Free to be me.
Yeah, and whatever they think I am or not am, most people have no idea the
No
sort
idea.
of work I do.
I would not,
No.
looking at you, I would never say you're a shamanic healer.
No, I know. It's
and
great,
and
isn't
an
it?
amazing one. Like, yeah, because we have girls that sit there and they've got tats and they've got, and that's beautiful.
Yeah, of course.
They're expressing
they're
themselves.
Yeah. The feather earrings are giving her away
Yeah,
a little
a
bit.
little
I know. Look, do you know what? Up until I really, really got going on my journey, like, I would never wear a dangly earring.
Yeah.
A pearls only. So, like, I mean, really.
Isn't that wild?
Yeah. So this is like, I'm stepping out today.
Yeah.
I actually like these, but
That's so wild.
it's
pearl
it
earrings.
is. Yeah, twin set pearl. So I gotta get the whole picture.
Twin set.
Yeah.
I You are breaking all paradigms.
I am.
Now. Yeah.
My mum used to say to me all the time, when she'd call me and she'd say, make sure you put your lippy on before Aaron gets home, my husband. That is literally the mindset that, I grew up with.
It's so beautiful though, because we are now coming into that reality that, you can be whoever you want to be, the true essence of who you are, and you don't have to go and dress hippie, speak softly, be any of those things.
No. I've learned, it's taken me a long time and it is a process it's such a deep process, because the one beautiful thing, all the modalities I learned were part of the self-discovery, but shamanic work for me really taught me things on a really deep level, and it changed. That really was this huge shift and change for me, because even being me and doing what I meant to be doing was a huge gorgeous, like your Mount Everest, right?
Yeah, it's so beautiful just how this works, because the questions roll into and as soon as you started talking, then I was like, oh my god. So one of the next question that we asked is, when did you first notice a shift in your thoughts about the world?
Oh yeah. And a huge part of that, I think, is the basis for any shamanic work. Like, we have all different cultures. The word shaman truly just means medicine person. And when we let go, the main sort of pillars of work that goes on in shamanic work is delabeling, and letting go of roles. And, like, the reason I still dress the way that I do is because it's part of my story and it's part of who I am. And I do not like, I always chuck an absolute fit at people, not at people, but just in my Kendall rant, and my students will tell you when I have a Kendall rant. But, like, don't ask me to wear a stupid outfit. Yeah. Because it offends my personality. Yeah. Like, so I don't, like, if that's your outfit and you like it, I'm happy for you to go. But that's not, I feel like we're this bridge, Western shamanic practitioners are bridges between our communities we were raised in, and the community I was raised in are not wanting to talk about their feelings. Yeah. It is money and value based. Yeah. They're not happy with who they are. Yeah. Most of the women I know that are married aren't happy. Yeah. I always say, can I put it on all the people I've met in my lifetime, I can only put on one hand the amount of women I know that are actually in conscious, happy marriages, and we've all grown up with these codependent ones. So everything that I was learning has changed my perception on living life my way, and teaching people that it's okay to be yourself. And it's been such a big journey, because when we started out, one thing I've really changed over the past 2 years is really come into strength is we used to apologise over fucking everything. Even over swearing. Sorry, I shouldn't be swearing on your podcast.
Don't
apologise. So we're always apologising for who we are and what we are, and shamanic work has taught me that each person has an individual medicine and an individual vibration, and if we're going to save the planet, like, every single person needs to be completely embracing their personal medicine, and that's why I teach it that way. Like, I could set up what I've got now. I've got a beautiful community that we've grown, and I could have turned it into an academy to say, this is my course, and I want you to learn my course, and then I want you, if you want to teach, you teach my course. But to me, that old paradigm of how to work things does not exist anymore. It's like, you can't teach, someone can't teach trying to be me. No. Right? And then that's terrible, because then they're missing out on sharing the truth of their medicine. So our job is to get as many people through the gates as possible, so you get out there and freaking work your magic.
Oh, I so freaking love what you just said. That's just so beautiful. I have to ask the question though, because
it's nice to have that, not wanting to have control over something. And ownership. It's beautiful to be gifting.
We have so many women that sit there and speak about exactly what you're saying, but they've left their husband. I know. So I wanted to ask,
been a big
are you still with your husband?
Yes. We've been together for 27 years.
Yay.
How
gorgeous. So tell us a bit about
that. I was going to divorce him yesterday.
Are you listening, Aaron?
Yeah, listening, Aaron. Yeah, you'll be laughing. That's been a huge part of my story.
Yes.
Because there's two aspects to this. If
Yeah.
I don't mind
No,
sharing,
go for
I
it.
think
Yeah.
it's really
Please.
important. One
Yeah.
thing is when the era of teaching, when I was learning from other different teachers, then you're really information collecting.
Yeah.
You know, it's not that you need to be that person. You're just trying to remember who you are.
Mm.
But in my era, the teachers came and went.
Yeah.
And they would sort of travel around on trips, and so like by the time you came back and wanted to study next level in something, you didn't want to miss out on going to an event, so you booked in, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
Whereas, so they weren't here to support
back on,
or
yes.
fall back on.
Which
it
is
was,
probably a great thing.
it was good for them, but not necessarily.
I hear what
Do you
you're
know
saying. Yeah.
It takes a lot of energy to support a community. It really does. But I do think we miss an essence with that.
Yeah.
So, and also the women when I was going, and men, like people when I was going to events in those days, those early days, everyone was divorced,
Yes.
or, you know, gay. So that was different. Or women who were finally finding themselves and were retired and had time to go to retreats and had
Yes.
time to go to things. So I felt like I came in when I started, I had young kids and it was a fight just to get out the door to go to one little workshop, you know. So for me, it was like, oh my God, do I have to get divorced
Right.
to actually like
Fit in.
be happy or
Again.
be this person and fit in? And so it was really confronting.
Yeah.
And I feel like now my husband has had to go a huge amount of growth with me, but he's my person
Yeah.
Beautiful.
and he might work at a different
Yeah.
state than me. He doesn't need to be spiritual either.
Yeah.
And so many times I was at events and people would say to me, your partner must be so spiritual. And I'd say, why? And they're like, you're amazing. He must be so spiritual. I'm like, my husband's a builder. And no, he's very grounded. That was probably the best way to describe, you know, like the point is your partner should respect you for what lights you up.
Yeah.
Yes.
And your partner should want you to be the best version of yourself. Now,
Hallelujah.
does that make it easy? Do you have speed bumps? Abso-friggin-lutely.
Yeah.
But his growth can be different to mine.
Yeah.
And he always says to me, you process at goddamn light speed. I just don't know how to think. I can't think the way that you think. But creating, really letting go of, I had to put a line in the sand at one point and go, I really understand more now, and we have a really codependent marriage.
Yeah.
And that's only because all of our parents and grandparents and great-grandparents had codependent marriages, because that's what we were all taught.
Yeah.
And we need to have something different, or this is not going to work for us long term, you know?
Oh, that's such a big love.
It's
there.
such a big love.
That's beautiful. Yeah.
So every time I throw the gauntlet down, he follows. Poor man. All my girlfriends who are more, you know, on my more conservative side of my life, they're like, their catchphrase is, poor Aaron. What are you doing to
no,
Aaron?
I don't
now?"
think
No.
poor Aaron. I think Aaron might be a very, very, very big being.
I feel like
who's
he's
totally,
holding
yes.
it.
I feel like his
Beautiful
alignment
for
is
himself.
above mine, and he just doesn't need to do those tricks
Exactly.
this lifetime, whereas I'm like trying to work through it all.
It's almost like he's there just like open arms, just like, come on, honey, I got ya.
Yeah, I think honestly, he hates seeing me sad.
Oh.
So like, if whatever I do makes me happy,
Yeah.
then yeah. And he's he's probably the first person in my life that actually treated me with equality.
Yeah.
Because I don't think traditionally we had that.
Yeah.
You know, it was like girls do this, boys do this sort of thing. Whereas he's always seen me in very much an equal light,
Yeah.
and that works. And I'm really passionate about helping people understand relationships better.
Yeah.
Because like proof's in the pudding, right?
Yeah.
It's
Absolutely.
that simple
So
sometimes,
important.
isn't it, to recognise that you can honour the path where you've both come from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you don't need to continue expressing through that way, but to see each other
Yeah.
and who you are and be happy if they're happy.
A lot of allowance.
It's a very simple
But that's also
formula of love, isn't it?
Yeah, and it is just a conscious there's a difference between thinking you're you're a conscious person and you're both having conscious relationships and actually deciding to have, like I sat with him and said, this is the difference between a conscious marriage, because I did all this psychology on it, and this is the difference between what we've come from, and I don't want that for you or me, because it's going to, ultimately it hurts us.
Yeah.
So, you know, do you want to do this? And he always says, you break everything down into a simple way for me.
So he understands it.
Yeah, totally.
How amazing for your kids too, to see that. Yeah,
Yes.
so
'Cause
powerful.
That's, again, just a bleed on from conscious parenting, but very much in the sense of living in this world.
Yeah.
Because running away from everything on your spiritual journey and going, I don't want to be tied down. Like, look, all of that, if you choose to be a mum or a dad, or you choose to be in a partnership, it requires work.
Yes.
You know?
Well, it's this true essence of the masculine and feminine that's coming through, and you both have major roles in there to do, and they slide.
Oh,
Sometimes
totally.
you have to play the masculine role, and he can be have the feminine role. You know, it's a sliding scale, and it's wherever it fits and works best in each moment.
Yeah, and your kids need to hear.
Yeah.
Your kids need to see, that it's good for them to see you work on things.
Absolutely.
You know
And
what I
work
mean?
through them,
Yeah.
and to have a language
And
that achieves change and connection still,
Yeah.
and happiness.
So I love that, because I used to look at other people in the industry and I'd be like, well, you're either unwell or you're drugged up or you've broken up after person.
Yeah.
And like, that's not the benchmark I want to get to. So
Yeah.
I feel like it at work now, we create that sense of reality check,
Yeah.
you know, like it takes time.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, it's just, it's very inspiring, because I think it is that, to recognise that you are lonely, and not to project it on your partner, and you're not fulfilling me, I need to go in search of whatever it is that's fulfilling me, but to sort of work within the space of it is about you and what's making you happy, and find your answers in that way, but still have the conscious communication with your partner, so that you are pacing alongside each other as you're journeying through life.
It's admirable. Admirable.
The patience in that is
I was
beautiful.
going to say, it's been a lot, because it's patience on his side and my side, like, you know, because I always call them speed bumps. There's speed bumps there.
Absolutely.
And that doesn't mean that's like, let's just all leave each other
Yeah.
totally now. It's just that I don't tolerate toxic relationships.
Yeah.
Though. If the person is willing to work with you, but you also need patience to give that person time to catch up.
Yeah.
So I'm really passionate about people understanding those sort of things and creating non-negotiables in your relationship.
Yeah.
So you're like, here's my boundaries.
Yes.
Here's the stuff that's a deal breaker for me. We do a lot of that with client work as well. Like, have you even ever spoken about this stuff?
It's funny you say that, because you hear a lot of people that have been married for a long time, and then you hear people talk about this, you know, the boundaries and the deal breakers, and people will say, "Oh, I've never had that conversation with my husband." So,
See, I think it was something inside of me that was always there.
Yeah.
Because even the day of my wedding day, I didn't leave home to the day of my wedding.
oh wow,
I know this is another weirdness about me, that people go to me, are you freaking kidding?
Uniqueness.
But it's kind of funny. It's like, is this out of an old 50s movie? It's quite bizarre how things played out. But I remember my dad he was so in the car with me before, like everybody's in the church, right? And he was said to my dad, turned around to me, because everything was very, we did everything traditionally. And Dad said to me, look, I don't care how much your mother spent on this thing. It's a big traditional wedding, right? He goes, I don't want you to get out of this car unless you're happy.
Oh,
you know,
how beautiful of your dad.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
And I said to him, I started laughing because I adore Aaron. So I was like, come on, Dad, I haven't seen Aaron all day. Like, let's come. I want to go. Let's go. And he was like, a little bit concerned. I said, it's okay. I got Plan B. And they all, like, everyone kind of gradually over the years has found out about Plan B, but nobody knows what it is. And I don't believe any girl should hand themselves over unless they have a backup plan.
Yeah, right.
So I have a backup plan.
Yeah.
And
You've still got it?
I still have it. I still have it because I think that I never want to lose me. And trauma happens in life. Like anything could happen.
Yeah.
And if something happens, I'll engage plan B.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I've got space to think.
Yeah.
And I find people are because I'm very little and tiny, and even though I'm very loud, people always want to protect me, and my family very much wanted to. They felt like I didn't see the world normally.
Yeah.
They felt like I didn't see the bad in anyone, but believe me, I can see everything very clearly.
Yeah.
So they always
so
try and protect me to a point that's not. It's not healthy for me.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And so I've always needed that backup plan to go. If I wasn't okay, I need to know what I need to pack. Or if Aaron broke one of my non-negotiables, we both had them with each other. And I said this, if I've said, it doesn't matter if it's 27 years ago, if I've said that is the end of our marriage and you've broken my trust or whatever, or you ever did these things, things that I could not tolerate in liking myself anymore if I let it happen. Yeah. Right? So you have to back yourself.
Oh, I was going to say
honour yourself.
Honour yourself. I keep getting that too, which is so an empowering thing to do and have. Yeah.
And women need to do, like, we don't need to, that's us understanding our warrior essence.
Yeah.
Like the way that we are fierce with protecting our children, we need to also protect ourselves. Yeah. And I find that if you're really solid in that and honest with that, then men respect you.
Absolutely.
But if you're iffy about it,
then they're going to get that. Usually you get a bit like, chipped away at it. Yeah.
No, none of that.
That's unreal. I love that because that's kind of where we're heading to next. So we've talked about the things that have you've had to shift or whatever.
Much.
What kind of things have happened to you or were happening around you? Like we talk about the law of attraction and all these wonderful things.
Yes.
What type of things were starting to happen around you when you started to wake up more and realise that there's much more to you than
I suppose there's two sides to it. Like on the spiritual connection side, things just really most of the time felt in more alignment, so that opportunities kept coming, and the path has a way of saying, oh good, you're ready, and just opening things up. But the other side of my life was difficult, so difficult with friends, difficult with judgment, difficult, well, what's wrong with you now? But kind of, that's where the terms of, oh, you're doing your woo-woo stuff, or my brother would say to me, you're weirdo or whatever, just, and it's all said in like jest at times, but then people are serious. They're seriously uncomfortable.
Yes. Well, words are powerful, aren't they? Like when they do kind of create a different energy field from the person that's uttering them. Yeah. As well as how they're received.
But also when you change, especially someone as close as your brother, sometimes the freak out is that they may have to change if you change.
My family till this day, and I love them dearly, but like, I've built my own business, and they don't visit it or
I was going to say
discuss it. We don't talk about that. But that's okay, because along those years, you have certain people that drop into your life, on that journey and in different little spiritual chapters you've had, and one person said to me once, someone I really valued in, like, not just in their conscious self, but also the ability to ground in their business and everything else, because I admire that. Like, I'm really proud of what I do, and I'm professional in what I do, and I want my students to, like, also feel the same, like to be valued for all of this beauty that you're bringing in here. It's hard work, man. It's not easy, like, being with people that are broken all the time and wanting to help. It's a hard job. So but she said to me, you know what, it's just one little comment, I feel like I've got these little one-liners that so many people dropped in over the years, and I'm like, it just hits home. And she said, your family aren't your clients. And at that time in my life, I was really hustling to prove my worth and my value to my family. And that's because, when you're successful in the way that I brought up, you make money. So I was really hustling to be not just good at what I did, but like professional in what I did, so that you would value, even though you don't understand it, you would value it. But even as far as I've gone now, and I really don't give a crap anymore about any of that.
I was going to say, it's a pretty hard area
Yeah.
to be really wealthy in too, you know, when they're...
And I'm probably at the best place I've been, you know, ever.
Yes.
But then I don't care about it anymore.
Yeah, that's why you're in the best
and they
place
still,
ever.
And they still don't notice.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? They still don't, you know.
Because it was never about...
They're not interested, so they don't, the conversation. But that helped me.
Yeah.
That helped me focus on who my clients were and stop hustling from my past. And also, I just started looking at my family more as if I don't need to heal you. I don't need to explain myself. I don't need to do it. I just need to be, if I'm more peaceful and I'm more happy and I'm more content, then I'm going to, that's who I'm going to be in the space with you.
Yeah.
And yes, so you're going to have some digs and you're going to do it. And it still drives me a little bit nuts. It's just a human in me.
Yeah.
But it hasn't stopped me.
No.
And I have to say,
part
like,
of the journey,
everyone that's spoken of you, like your people that have passed through your school, your learning space, just speaks of you with the most incredible respect and love.
Yeah.
And you feel how much they received from you and been inspired by you and what you've activated in them. So, you know, it's a very big space that you hold.
Your soul family.
For your clients. And I must imagine, like, if they can tease you about your muffins, I'm sure, goddamn sure, they're picking up on the other stuff that's coming out in your energy field, whether they choose to acknowledge it in words or not. You can be sure that they do have a resonance, a change in how they receive you. But it's kind of funny how stoic people are, though.
Perfect.
They don't,
who they are, though, too.
Oh, that's true.
They love me.
Absolutely.
They love me dearly.
Yeah.
And it's just like, but it's all like, this is what shamanic work does. It teaches you that everything comes down to your family dynamic.
Yeah.
And every teacher I had bullied me. And whether it was at school or every boss I had before I started into the spiritual world, like, you know, you get so much work experience from the jobs you've had before. So don't worry about who you've, like, all the jobs that I had before I turned this into a job. And if you told me I was going to turn it into a job, I would have said, you're absolutely bloody crackers.
Yeah.
No way. If you told me I'd be out there screaming and channeling and banging drums, which no one expects me to do anyway and freaks everyone out, I would have just gone, you are completely nuts.
Yeah.
That will never happen.
Yeah.
Because I started to heal me. That's all. That's the only reason I started. But with my family, I know it's because they don't who understand what I'm doing, and they fear for me.
Yeah.
You know,
they care for you.
They have a different perception of who I am.
Yeah.
But
you know, that one little share that you said about your dad asking you before you jumped out of the car, you know, is this really what you want to do? You know, there's the bricks that are around the family dynamic. We don't talk about our emotions. We don't do this. We don't do that. They're so solid, but yet there is different things going on in that space. And obviously, what I get a really strong sense of is you are an integral part of that family, that the family moves around. I get a really big sense of that. Keep watching this space. I'm sure. It doesn't need to change a lot, but it'll be interesting to see what you see those changes are over the years.
when they need me, I'm there.
Yeah.
And it's a great thing, and I think we all have good relationships together. I just have to, but I wield my world differently. I finally worked out the world I was living in wasn't always healthy for me.
No.
So I needed to build a world that worked for me, and that's what I want my students to do, is like, don't try and fit in, create your world, and like, this is living proof that you can do it.
Absolutely.
So like, build it to your specifics, build your world to your specifics. Like, even trying to fit into a normal business module doesn't work.
Doesn't work.
As a healer.
Not in this, and this is
is
perfect.
because I literally feel like you're not meant to fit into those bricks. You're meant to be over there and be in your own space.
Yeah.
100%. And maybe that's why they're not kind of accommodating you by changing so much in a way, because you're meant to be over there in that space and with your clients. Your people. Yeah.
But it takes a lot of guilt
big.
off you when you realise that your family aren't your clients.
Yeah.
Because they're there for a whole different purpose for you. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So once you let go of that, you're like, wow, that's...
Feels good.
Yep.
Our next question is just right on track.
Yeah.
So what did you decide to change, if anything?
Oh, changed so much. A huge part of it was even when we're talking about that family dynamic, it sort of flows through, like, even like, as I said, I always had bosses that were bullies, and it just built this you know, thing inside me where every single person, like, I went home crying all the time because I was such a sensitive person, even though I'm a really strong person. It's okay to freaking cry. I know that now. It's a good thing. But each time I was like, this little internal voice was like, all right, we're going to remember this, and we're not going to be that person. We're not going to, you know, so how I teach is all about authenticity, because I have permission. When I'm in my space at work, I can be who I am, and I build a really safe space to do that. Does it mean that I don't falter sometimes when my worlds collide? Yeah, of course I do, because I'm waiting for that judgment and I'm waiting for that criticism. But when I'm at work, I'm fucking on.
Yeah.
I'm like, and because I've built that well for me. But it's hard. It's hard. Like there's been so many like baby steps and big moves.
Yeah.
Like lots of different parts to the story.
It's like a puzzle, isn't it? It's
It
like
is.
where and which piece I need to move now, and then that one needs to stay there, and then this big piece needs to go. Yeah, it's like
So I think I've learnt over everything's about alignment.
Yeah.
And it's not about just exiting everyone out of your life and all of that. It's about like what isn't lining up for you. You know what I mean? It's not about anyone else right now. And you need to, that puzzle piece is the first thing you need to change.
Yeah.
So if it's the fact that you're in a marriage where, you know, for you to get to that workshop, your husband's going to have to literally change and be home for the kids. So even if you can't cope and you're feeling like the worst mother on the fucking planet, and I can remember backing out of the driveway and the kids are crying and I'm crying. And I'm like, all it's going to is a 2-hour workshop. It seemed like the whole world, like, to even make that move at the time.
Yeah.
But one thing at a time.
Yeah.
And long as it's in aligned with, like, a lot of my students have asked me questions like this as well, but I always say to them, my only goal, my first goal was to become well because I felt so physically sick.
Yeah.
And then my second goal after that, once I got started with I used to go to yoga one night a week, you know, to help me while I had the kids, and obviously did the tarot course, and that was fun. Oh my God, who knew you could have fun, right? So that stuff, all these little things, but my goal still is and always has been, I realized I didn't like myself very much. Like I might seem okay on the outside, but there was lots of parts I didn't like. And I just wanted to go to bed at night. I used to say, when I lay my head on that pillow, I want to like me. And I'll get up the next day and I don't never always know what that challenge is, right? And I do think from, you know, every 5 to 10 years, as you shift those age groups, those challenges, and your kids might get older, or your partner might be in a different stage, or whatever else, those challenges keep changing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you never kind of just get there.
No.
But you are internally calmer, better, happier, content. And that's a power that no one can take away from you.
I love that. That's really beautifully said.
So
that's really
how long
beautifully
did
said.
the chronic fatigue sort of hang around for?
Probably about, maybe it was building probably about a year, but it was more also then afterwards. Even to this day, I have to be really aware of I get emotionally overloaded. I used to as a kid too. So my mum would say to me, once we spoke about it, and she said, oh, you know, we'd just say you had a virus, and I just go to sleep or go to bed or feel unwell, and I call it on an empathic level, I just get really sad
Yeah.
because everything's too much.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
not even my stuff. It's just everybody's stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'll hit the reset button. My students know very many funny stories about that, because we need to normalize this.
Yeah.
And because this is about you looking after you,
Mm.
and you can't go out and be a healer. I mean, every single client will teach you how to heal another part of yourself, because they're a reflection.
Yeah.
You know, and then you work on that little fragment.
Yeah.
You know, because when you do healing, there's an exchange for both of you, and it's not like, oh, I'm the guru, I'm friggin' healing you. It's like, you've come to me, and like whoever comes into my room is for me sent by spirit, and I come out better and they come out better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, but it doesn't mean I will be recalibrating something in my life that next week or two.
Yes.
Because it's brought something up for me as well.
Absolutely. It's unmasked the hidden things that are sitting inside of us that we're not yet to see.
Yeah, and
But,
it's such an honour to share other people's lives.
Yeah.
You know,
Absolutely.
you learn so much,
Yeah.
don't you? Not just about yourself, but in general.
Absolutely.
And it's important to, like, sometimes in life there's not many things that we stop for anymore. And just what you were saying then, like, to have respect for what you're doing in your career, in your business, and caring for your clients, and the energy exchange, stopping and allowing yourself to process
Yeah.
is essential, really,
Yeah.
isn't it?
And that's another thing we teach really strongly is, like, you know, because I feel like with my teachers and that, if you were brought up in a culture where you did a shamanic apprenticeship for 7 years with one teacher, you know, you think of how much you grow and how much you change, whereas in Western culture we go to a course and then it's sort of over, sort of thing. And it's very important you do your own work and you integrate it and you learn self-healing.
Yeah.
But we kind of abandoned a little bit, and then we wonder, we're not actually also taught the discipline of integration. So there's like, sometimes I need to not be the teacher. And that's one thing I learned, a really valuable lesson I learned with one of my teachers was once my ex-teachers happened, actually 3 of them, would you believe this? When I went to study shamanism, 3 of my ex-teachers were in the room, and I was so intimidated. They were coming to learn the same course. Had no idea.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, oh my God. So again, I'm like, you know, you go into the, I'm just a
Yeah,
no one
yeah,
type
yes,
of, you know, we all
yes.
do the imposter
Yeah.
syndrome stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway, but what I noticed is how they struggled with learning the next thing, because they wanted to hold on to their identities, and shamanic work strips you all fucking back. It's just like, you know, you are nobody, you're always going to be nobody, but that's okay. You know, you're not in your roles now. And that was another thing, little pocket I put away for myself, and I'm like, always remember, Kendall, be student teacher, student teacher, student teacher. Like, you've got to go from mode to mode. And so I get into modes where I'm really super comfortable because I've created my own space and I'm comfortable in my space. And then it's really uncomfortable for me to get out of my space and go and learn something new and be nobody.
Oh, yes.
But I make myself do that.
Yeah.
And I make sure I'm pretty shit scared.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, you get into this ego
Complacency.
and I think that's when we get that ego thing of like, it's, you know, I'm so important.
Yeah. Well, we're actually putting a lid on ourselves, aren't we? Because we're not, there's no, you know, we're containing ourselves.
Well, as you get static in a way, it's like the fluidity around yourself.
And you get so attached to that new label, like, you know, I'm Kendall from Heart Hive, you know.
Yeah.
I'm pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And death work for me has been huge, which spirit led me to. I wasn't looking for it. It sort of fell in, but it was a leveler.
Yeah.
So what brought you to working with Hopewell Hospice?
Yeah, I was, at the time, my kids were still, you know, that bit younger, and they were at, you know, school age, but junior schools sort of thing. And I was working from home at the time. I had a beautiful healing room at home. But I was in that stage of my life where I actually really look back and think how beautiful, where I had, because I was so hyper organised, obviously baking my muffins and cleaning my house. Because that's part of me. I don't have to let her go.
No,
Like,
no.
I need order, so that's fine. I love that. I'm great.
It's love being expressed in a way,
That's
isn't
right.
it? It's
Yes.
so beautiful.
I don't have to throw it all out the window. But I had, if clients booked in with me, I was doing card readings at the time, and also doing like crystal healing and stuff. And if clients booked in with me, then, you know, that was great, but it wasn't a full business at that point. It was, you know, everyone, my friends would refer to it as Kendall's hobby. Or, you know, Kendall's thing, you know. Anyway, and I didn't really care about any of that, but it was great because when I had those sort of 3 days of the week that I had put aside for taking clients, I noticed that sometimes I didn't have clients. And I was talking to a girlfriend and I said, I wish I could just do something else, like some give back work, you know. And she was talking and she said, I do the flowers, go in and do the flowers in Hopewell Hospice. And I'm like, oh. And she said, and she knew I did Reiki at the time, and she said, they have a Reiki team there.
Oh, wow.
I'm like, what do you mean? Tell me more. And she's like, well, I don't want to deal with the patient, you know, the patients, clients, people, whatever you want to call them at the time, but I just do the garden, bring all the stuff in from the gardens and do that in the laundry and that. But she said, I'll give you the director's name and you can go in and see her, and maybe you can join the Reiki team there. And that's how I started volunteering.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, and they took one
lovely.
look at me and said, listen, little girl,
Yeah.
I don't think you know. I remember the director saying to me, she's so beautiful. She was just a legend, and I understand why she did, but people often think I'm a lot younger than I am.
Yes.
And because I'm really petite. And so when I went in there and I looked even younger then, God, she said to me, now, you know, yes, listen, little lady, I just want you to know that people die here. And I said, I'm well aware.
Not always pretty in here.
I'm well aware they die. But then there's that we're going through that stage in the spiritual industry where everyone's like, I'm a healer, you know, and they want to do work like that they come in with this persona that they're going to heal people.
Yeah.
And that's not what death work is about.
Yeah.
So I started off in the Reiki team when she realised I had enough intelligence to know what was going on, but quickly that changed, and it's actually why I started shamanic work, looking for a shamanic teacher, because I didn't know any modality that dealt with death work, because in those times we didn't have like death doulas and things like that's really birthed since then, which
Absolutely.
is great. And I thought, I'm doing all this stuff that I don't know what I'm doing. Right.
Go with spirit.
Yeah, I'm just, which is, you know, just going with it and being me. And I thought, I don't really know if there's rules, or I go home to have little kids and you want to be taking negative energy home.
Yes.
And I just was a little bit concerned because it's quite an intense work.
Yeah.
Yes.
Even all of your sensitivity as an empath with it. So I was looking for a type of healing that would give me a bit more information to see if what was coming naturally, I was doing the right thing.
Yeah.
And that's what
Came
actually
about.
why shamanic came up.
Yeah.
But I loved that work.
Beautiful.
Because you, when Joe introduced you, as your Rainbow Land,
Rainbow Lantern, yes.
and Heart Hive. So you've moved Sydney, Gold Coast, Sydney, Gold Coast.
Yes. I've been interstate.
Yeah.
I think I've had 5 interstate moves now. So I like change, obviously. So originally from Sydney, I grew up in the Northern Beaches, and then my husband and I moved up when my son was 18 months to the Gold Coast, and we were up here for 10 years and we absolutely loved it. It was much slower pace than it is now, I'm sure you know. And then we kind of, just before our son was going to go into high school, we had a lot of pressure from family about, you know, we miss you all, like, you know, we don't get to see the kids, blah, blah, blah. And we I don't know, we just had a moment, and we thought, well, maybe, I think, honestly, we had unfinished soul business to do, right? So we came back to Sydney, and we spent 5 years back in Sydney, but after 12 months, we were ready to leave. We realised we'd changed too much.
Yeah.
Like in 10 years, how we'd evolved on the coast, not having that family dynamic pressure on either side.
Yeah.
Not that any family was an issue.
No, but
It just felt light living up here.
Yeah. You had the space.
And you can kind of reinvent yourself.
Yeah.
You know? There's permission to reinvent yourself. So,
Yeah.
but financially, it took us kind of 5 years. We both run our own businesses.
Yeah.
So, my husband's a builder, so it took us 5 years to turn it around and move back.
Lovely.
Yeah. So was Rainbow Land your business in Sydney?
Rainbow
Yeah,
Lantern.
so I'd been playing really small, up until when I left the hospice volunteering, even though still running my little business at home. I left the hospice when we moved back the only reason I left was because we moved back to Sydney. And I stood in the car park on the last day and I thought, oh gosh, like it was so overwhelming, like leaving, because I really enjoyed that time. I actually have to say it's the best work I've ever done.
It's such a gift
It's
to
just
to
such a
support that
privilege.
process of-
It's such a privilege to do.
Yeah.
But I've learnt so much about life. And for me, my experience was over those 2 years, I met so many people from so many different walks of life, from whether you had a family or you didn't have anyone but friends, whether you were younger or you were older, whether you were rich or whether you were average or whether you were poor. So it really put me in this massive cultural different situation, social different situation. And I realised there's only two types of people that die. And that is people with regrets and people without.
Yeah, right.
God.
Wow,
You know,
wow.
and it just was a power charge for me, because I realised with all those people, I couldn't definitively say that, I knew this particular man who was in the hospice for quite a long time, and he was the most beautiful person. And he was really, really wealthy, but that wasn't going to save him.
Yeah.
And then I met another man who was really, really, really angry, and he used to throw things at me every time I walked in the door until later on. He shouldn't have been alive, but I tell you one thing else. I learned that anger keeps you alive a lot longer.
Yeah.
People are pissed.
Yeah.
They are not willing to give up on that.
Yeah.
That takes them even longer to go. They go way past the time the doctors have said.
Yes.
It's like an elixir, right? Doesn't mean they're happy. It just means they have stuff to sort out.
Absolutely.
And I realised that none of all these outside things that we think in our life matter.
Yeah.
But one thing that mattered was not about how much money the person made, not about how many times they got married, or none of those things. We thought it was like, did they feel like they gave everything a good crack?
Yeah.
And it wasn't about, there was people that tried things, because people would tell you their stories when they could, and there were people that tried things, but they were glad they tried. And so when I got in the car, I was like, oh, Kendall, you are so scared of like putting yourself actually out there. Like, you're having your little room at home and being in your little corner.
Yeah.
It's so lovely, and you feel good about it, but you just
Need to stretch yourself.
you're afraid.
You've got big wings that are like pinned and tight to your back.
So I came home and I said to my husband, when we moved back to Sydney, I'm opening a centre. And I need to do this. I need to try.
Yeah.
And if it fails, then I won't regret it. But so I have lived since then with this policy that if I get to a point where if I don't do something, I will regret it, which to me is alignment.
Yeah.
Right? It's not about who else thinks about it. Then I have to follow through.
Yeah.
Whether I like, most of the time I don't want to.
Yeah.
But
You've made the decision.
Yeah. So Rainbow Lantern was born for that reason. Like in Sydney, and I literally had my plan.
Yeah.
And I was like, I remember sitting there and, waiting, like not, even though I had family in Sydney and that I had been away for 10 years, and the people the energy that I came from wasn't my client.
Yeah.
They weren't my clients. So I was like, I remember sitting on the floor, and my sister was really good then. She came and sit with me, and she goes, well, I don't know if you'll ever get any clients. So we had a big room for meditation, everything, as well as I made sure I had contingency fund after contingency fund, and I made sure I put away a certain amount of money and I could pay the lease, like real business-minded head of thank you family for that, right?
Yes.
So it all has a purpose. But I sat there for weeks, and because nobody knew me, and I was like, so she'd come over, and the first couple of weeks when we had meditation classes and stuff on, in this beautiful space. And I didn't know if Sydney was ready for me.
Yeah.
Because up here, we were much more open.
Open, yeah.
And I really didn't think they were ready for me. And I really resisted telling people I was actually could do shamanic work as well, because I didn't think people would handle it.
Yeah.
But
It was okay.
yeah, so she'd sit with me and have a cup of tea, and I remember she said to me one night, well, I don't know if this will ever work for you, but like you've made a bloody nice place for us to hang out.
Yeah, have a cup of tea.
And that's literally what we did. And then people started turning up.
I was going to say, because
Yeah.
it's more about you, isn't it, than the people.
And it's two things then, which is like what you're saying to your students all the time, is like, one, you have to freaking trust yourself. You got to trust that if Spirit says, you do what Spirit says. I always say I got one boss, that's it. I don't listen to anyone else.
Yeah.
Right? I know I know what I need to do.
Yeah.
And if I go out of that, no, it's probably not going to be supported. They just let me go off on my little detour.
Yeah.
But like, that's staying in your own lane.
Staying in your own
you
lane.
know?
I love that.
And people will show up.
Yeah.
But people will talk. Doesn't matter how many social media posts and things you do. Authenticity and reputation. Like, for me, integrity is everything.
Yeah.
And that's where you build.
Yeah.
You know, and it's hard. It's hard sitting around thinking, well, am I going to fail?
Yeah.
But would you feel
can't.
worse if you didn't give it a crack?
I agree.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
This
to
is-
see that you can create that beautiful space, and you have that beautiful balance of the business structure
Yeah.
to support the spirit function on top, the expression on top.
Yeah. And I've been blessed to have, in having those traditional roles, I have a beautiful partner who, like, he's going out. The reality is, for me to be able to do everything at the pace I've done it at, which is a long, drawn-out time, unlike what some people are trying to do now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I was still able to be a full-time mum and slowly build my business over time, and he's the one paying the mortgage and doing all that.
Yeah.
So I do understand everyone. It's different now.
Yeah.
Because I've stepped up like a lot, but
Well, it's
I've
your
been.
time too,
I
isn't
do
it?
want to
It's
that
your
he
time.
he's had a big role in that as well.
That's
Yeah.
beautiful. I'm actually going to keep moving because
Sure.
we're getting close to time's up. It's gone so quickly. I looked at it before and it was an hour. I was like, what?
Yeah, Kendall's,
Wow.
the peacefulness is
Yeah.
beautiful. Like
I could talk forever.
I can
That's
just,
one.
you can imagine like what you were describing then about Rainbow Lantern. The space must have just felt very, like, especially in a busy place like Sydney.
Yeah.
Yeah, little sanctuary.
little
And
sanctuary.
I feel like that's one of your specialties, is to create a sanctuary.
To create a quiet place, definitely. Yeah. Well, not always quiet. We laugh a lot, but
Yeah.
just all our, even at where we're at Bundle, all our postmen, our most exuberant person that comes to visit us is our fire guy. He comes to check our fire extinguishers at the centre. He just loves coming. He's like, go girls, I'm here.
He probably comes every month
Everyone
instead of
just
6
wants
months.
to come in and hang. People used to always ask us, can we just come in and have a cup of tea and hang out here?
Nice.
One day we might build it and have a coffee shop or something as well. That would be good, wouldn't it?
Perfect.
I think you
Perfect.
should. There's
Yeah.
an opening there.
So, Kendall, what do you do now to support yourself for staying in the moment?
For me, I think if I'm going to be really honest about this, and I will be really honest because that's how I roll. But when I had the kids were little, and I was trying to learn new things and do new things and find me, I sometimes felt a bit resentful. In the sense that even with my hubbies at times I felt resentful, like, why can't I go to these things and everyone else is just free to do what they want, why can't I, because I have these responsibilities and all of that. And what I've realised over time is that grounds me. So I've actually built a really sustainable life where if I so-calledly left I feel really content now that I think last year was where things really hit home. I realised that the medicine woman is within me, and it's not about what I do, and it'll never be taken away. It's in everything I do. It's like when I'm talking to someone in the Coles, because I try not to go to Coles, honestly. I try and get click and collect because I literally can't get out of there without helping somebody, right? So wherever I am, I'm you are already this beautiful connection to spirit,
Yeah.
and it just is who you are as a person. But I think my family, which I call my pod, so people understand I'm not talking about my birth family, extended family, my pod. I always say if my pod's okay, I'm okay.
Yeah.
They're my first company. Highest my second company.
Yeah.
So they help me keep really present, because it's very easy to get lost in the me thing. Even though I probably had to find me in the beginning.
Yeah.
So doing normal stuff, being a normal person, dressing like a normal person, like all those things. I don't think there's any one particular thing right now. It changes all the time for me. I'm very much always shifting into new stages. So I love change. It's what keeps me fired up. So this year I've probably plateaued with the business. Like, it's really popped, and I've just worked really, really hard for the past couple of years and stepped more out of being... My kids are 22 and 17 turning 18 now, so I've nearly got the last one out of school.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like this momentum has kind of hit this what next, and spirit knows what I need to do next, but I'm a bit afraid. I'm kind of got really comfortable.
Yeah.
And it's just nice being loved by everyone, isn't it? Like, let's be honest, who doesn't love that? So the next challenge is ahead of me of you'll get bored, Kendall, if you just...
Yeah.
So reinventing oneself all the time is kind of what keeps me that really creates, in many ways, self-care for me.
Yeah.
And it's taken me a long time to learn that everyone tells me, do this thing, do that thing, do this thing, do that thing, go to a day spa, do that. But I don't feel any better, like I enjoy doing all these things with my girlfriends and that, but that's not my alignment. My alignment is kicking my own goals and working out, and that means crashing sometimes, and rebooting and recalibrating. Like, to me, life's always, my head works that fast. I'm just a big fucking puzzle, and I've got to always solve it. And that keeps me happy. Whereas when I think back to when I started, I didn't have any of that. I just had this static environment, and that's why I felt really lost.
Yeah.
So new things.
Nice.
Engagement.
I love that. Yeah.
So do you find, like, with the shamanism, is one of the things that's like embracing that, like you said, the medicine woman within you?
Yes.
Because your students have spoken about how each group has an animal.
Yes.
So do you find, like, the animals are a part of that shape shifting for you as well, like the energy of what the different animals are about?
Yeah.
How you flow through that space?
Yeah, because what the tradition is based on is, like, when each tribe forms, and this is why it's really important. Like, if someone rings me, and actually someone just rang me yesterday and said, we've been sold out for our August workshop, which is on this weekend, for a couple of months, and someone's rung me, and they always get devastated. Like, we've had this personal family emergency. Someone, our last level 2 one broke their ankle, fed downstairs, broke their ankle. I'm like, it's always divinely planned, like, just stuff going on, so it's okay. But we always say with level 1, because that's where your tribe animal, you're introduced to your tribe. And so a certain group gathers for a reason, and each person is medicine for each other, but they're also medicine for the collective. And so when you think of how rapidly energy is changing at the moment, every time we have a level 1, the collective's needing something different. And so this is the one thing that they will all look at each other. If you could see anxiety on people's faces, some of them never met me either, so I don't know what they think I'm going to be. They often think I'm the assistant, not the teacher.
Yeah.
They're like, her?
Surprise. And then the first class, oh yeah, okay.
Then we pick up, once we do drum circle and they get to meet the other me, then they're like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Like, so, but the thing is with the tribe animals is, the idea is, and this is how I was trained as well, is when you have spirit will speak to the teacher before the event. So the week before the event, usually the animal gets downloaded in, which means I go journey and find that animal. It's part of the tradition of what we do. And it'll only lock in when it needs to lock in. So once it locks in, if there's anyone in the group that doesn't suit that animal,
Oh, wow.
they'll be out.
Okay.
So we always have, like last week we had 3 people sick
Yep.
and 3 new people come in.
Yeah, right. Wow.
Yeah. So I have this, it's very annoying for paperwork, can I tell you?
Yeah.
But we have this,
Yeah.
we have this shift that
Yes.
happens so that everyone that turns up in that room,
Perfect.
and they all come in all looking anxious, and we all judge each other.
Yeah.
It's human nature. It's
Yeah.
a survival instinct. It's not because you're a mean person, but you're going to sit next to the person that feels like the most normal. Like the conservative people will come sit next to the most conservative person because
Yeah.
they feel safer.
Yes.
The one that's, looks like they've gone to Nimbin, the one with the fairy dress on will go sit. That we have such a
Yes.
massive collection
Yes.
of people
Yeah,
that are
eclectic.
trying, want to learn. But it's an empowerment course more than anything else. So what they do is when we get the animal, we actually get, on day 1, we give them a education about their tribe animal, and it's their training animal. So it's not their lifetime animal, but it's like you're in this room and every single person, even they're in a totally different skin suit, a totally different age group than you, and you might not feel like they're going to be your friend, right? They are the same animal as you that you struggle with learning about yourself.
Yeah, right.
And you will struggle with bringing these aspects of yourself out. And we explain the animal in the way of what are the aspects that you are resisting and what are you actually in alignment with. Like our tiger tribe were the quietest bunch of people you've ever met.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah, and other groups, they'll be go, oh, can we be I'm like, nah, that's not how this works.
Wow.
So when you do some, like, remember when we did Spider Tribe, I was like, I'm
Oh,
going to
God,
have to tell
I would not have been a part of that one.
yeah. I was like, oh, they're going to hate this because, everyone wants to be an eagle or wants to be a wolf or wants to be something cool and get a tattoo.
I don't know what I want to be, but I don't want to be a spider.
No.
Obviously, it is a calling there.
Yeah,
Jane.
maybe.
You don't get to choose.
No, yeah.
But when you understand the characteristics about
Yes.
the animal,
Yes.
and then
That makes
usually they
sense.
all look at me like I'm crazy, and then once we go through it all, and then even the next day when things kind of drop back in,
Yeah.
they'll go, oh my God, I am so, yes, I can feel like why this would
You resonate.
Yeah, so when I was with my teacher, I happened to be in Panther Tribe, and you know how I said to you I had 3 other previous teachers?
Yeah.
Yes.
Panthers they don't play well with others.
Oh.
So I was the opposite though, because you can be to or against your
Right.
own animal, what you have to bring out in yourself.
Yes.
And my family dynamic was always about being that getting dominated and told sort of thing.
Yeah.
And all my bosses, everything was all of that stuff. Whereas, and then I had all my teachers sitting in there. I'm like, oh my God. And no one, it was rough. It was really rough, really rough. But then when I did my second level, when she came back from America again, I went through into a different group because of the timing. Before I moved to Sydney, I needed to finish off my course.
Yeah.
And so I was with the owl tribe.
Ah.
And I sat in there as a panther, the only panther in there with the owls, and I thought they're all looking at each other like this. I know I can't see a song, but like a bird would.
Yeah.
And they were all like, oh my God, I thought then, holy moly, I am not an owl.
Wow.
I am clearly not an owl,
Yeah.
right? So we always laugh with that.
It's interesting.
So that
Yes.
animal,
Yeah.
it's about bringing the instincts of what you need to come into your power and to learn your craft, and it's your training animal, and that's what it's there for. Lots of
Wow,
fun.
it's really
it sounds so
interesting.
so interesting. Yeah, it's
Look at
very. Yeah, wow.
Ask this last question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which
We've,
is a really-
we've gone a little bit over, but that's all perfectly aligned.
Yes, Kendall has a lot to share.
How do you see the world now through Kendall's eyes?
I see the world very fractured
Mm.
at the moment.
Yep,
I'm going to call it the other way because I'm a shadow worker, so I'm not going to go, everything's fine. Everything's freaking not fine.
Yeah.
I think we're at a real pivot point now. And I think my belief is the reason I've taken a lot of hits and a lot of judgment and a lot of psychic attacks and all the rest of it is because Western culture is what controls the world, whether you like it or not. So the more that we understand how to bring this work forward, and the more we stop hurting other people, we stop, we really control the money on the whole planet and where it goes. And the more conscious we become, it's the way to go. So people go, oh, you and your woo-woo stuff, or you with your whatever. Like, really what we're teaching is, well, what I'm passionate about it is teaching is to understand your alignment and your personal medicine and do it friggin' well. Because everybody here has a job to do, and it's not all about the healing community.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't matter what you're doing. Our children now that are coming through are pretty awesome.
Yeah.
They are having a very hard time.
Yeah.
But their skills are awesome if we just listen to doing it different.
Yeah.
So I'm really hopeful for the future, but I'm on the front lines of people who are really not okay.
Yeah.
So I don't pretend it's all okay.
Yeah.
And I think the longer we go with that, everybody needs to, it's not about being a spiritual person in a way that they perceive. It's about being open and realizing that you actually deserve to know who you are, and you deserve to give it a crack, right? No regrets.
Yeah.
And
I agree.
like who you are.
Yeah.
Like, so I feel like we're at a pivot point now where more people need to get in the right canoe.
Yeah. Yes. And in their
pedal,
own lane.
and pedal.
Yeah.
Pedal fast.
Yeah.
Pedal fast.
No, I like
there's
like
a lot
what
of
you've said.
gold
Yeah.
in there.
Yeah.
I think the one thing I was thinking last night too, like the one thing, like if anyone asks me what I teach, really, I reckon it's kindness.
Yeah.
Like, and not in a way of, oh, let's just accept everyone and like, yes, get angry. Yes, like, you know, that fire is motivating, but
Passion.
being kind to yourself, and like I'm not out there teaching in a way that's saying that I wish like I'm so gracious to everybody. I have my own internal dialogue going on all the time. You know, even the fear of my students being better than me is something I have to really, really work on, because
it's a real
well, that's what held me back, you know, like with my stuff. And then, but that's all just coding that we've had in the past. There's lack mentality. There's not enough for everybody.
Exactly.
And we just keep getting more shit. You know,
Old
sort
conditioning.
of thing.
Yeah.
Old conditioning.
Yeah.
So I'm hopeful.
Yay.
It feels like every time you're doing a class, or every time you're, you know, you mentioned with your clients, but definitely with your classes, it's like shedding another layer, you know, that kind of, which
I'm
is
very
beautiful.
grateful because they give me permission to be myself.
Well, isn't that part of the learning too, and the healing is to, like you said, the exchange.
And
there has to be an exchange there.
I don't think our industry always gives us permission to be ourselves. I think we think because we're in the spiritual lane that, but that's not always what's happening.
Yeah.
So
time to change that.
Change it up.
Thank
Turn
you
up
so
the
much
dial.
for coming in. We're going to put all of your links and your workshops and everything at the bottom of the podcast. So if anyone's interested in what you do, which is really beautiful, we can pop it all in the end and people can jump on.
Thank you. It's lovely just to share time with you both. Gorgeous souls.
You know, your gorgeous, beautiful gift to us all, Kendall. Thank you so much for your strength, your fierceness, and your honest eyes. It's really
my
very
panther
cool.
eyes, right?
Yeah, love it. Thank you.
Thank you for listening, and remember, all links to our guest are in the notes. Leave us some comment here or message us on Instagram how our guest today connected with you, or perhaps something you wish to share. A special thank you to the blissful Ksenia Luki for our theme song. Joe and I will be with you next week.
Bye.
Ciao.
She teaches me lessons, and boy does she sing. Her voice sways like a hummingbird, flies like a shooting star. She whispers, you were never born, so you will never die.